Hi, Year 6. Well, it's a miserable day outside, but let's brighten it up with another chapter from Awful Auntie. Today is chapter 7, The Human Caterpillar. But Stella had to flee. Even though this great country house was her home, she didn't want to be here alone with this creepy lady a moment longer. The girl had always found Aunt Alberta spooky when she was growing up. The woman would sometimes tell her niece traditional bedtime stories, but with a twist. The twist was that in Alberta's versions, evil would always triumph. Let's take Hansel and Gretel. It's not the witch that's shoved into the oven at the end, but the two children. The witch, well, she lives happily ever after in her house made of sweets. 3 little pigs. The big bad wolf huffs and puffs and blows down all 3 houses. He then has roast pork for breakfast, lunch and dinner every day for a week. Goldilocks and the 3 bears. When Goldilocks gobbles up their porridge, the bears get their revenge and gobble her up. Snow White. When Snow White finds the 7 dwarfs' cottage, they lock her up. They make her do all the cooking and cleaning. Snow White then spends the rest of her life hand-washing 7 pairs of dirty dwarf underpants every day. Sleeping Beauty. She never wakes up. Just blows off violently in her sleep. Alberta particularly enjoyed adding the sound effects on this one, even providing some with a trumpet. Jack and the Beanstalk. Jack loses his grip on the beanstalk while climbing up it and falls down to earth, landing on top of his mother with a giant splat. Rapunzel. She's completely bald. When the handsome prince tries to climb up the tower, all he does is pull off her wig. The Frog Prince. The princess kisses the frog and contracts a waterborne disease that makes her bottom explode. The 3 Billy Goat Gruff. The troll who lives under the bridge eats all the goats, then eats the bridge, and then does a gigantic burp. Aunt Alberta always adored providing the sound effects here too. The Little Mermaid. She drowns. The end. These twists spoke of how Alberta herself was twisted. Stella just had to escape. The girl waited for the sound of her aunt's footsteps to go fainter as she disappeared down the long corridor. The bell the woman had put in her mouth had a bitter, rusty taste, and she pushed it away with her tongue. It rolled down her body and rested on the top of her stomach. Stella looked down at herself. Everything below her neck was tightly wrapped in what must be miles and miles of bandages. Aunt Alberta told her that every bone in her body was broken. But could that really be true? More likely the bandages were just a way of keeping her captive. The girl lifted her head. She could circle her neck around perfectly. Something told her that if she could only wrestle her way out of these bandages, she could make a run for it. Saxby Hall was a few miles from the nearest village. Situated beyond a huge expanse of moorland, it was too treacherous to cross at night, but during the day she might make it to the nearest farmhouse in a couple of hours if she ran as fast as she could. Stella could knock on the first door and beg for help. The girl desperately needed to discover for herself the truth about how her parents had died. But before she could escape from the house, Stella had to escape from these bandages. The girl began trying to rock her body from side to side. A flicker of a smile crossed her face as she realised she could move a tiny bit. She moved to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, like a swing. She went a little further each time, to the left, to the right. The bell rolled over her stomach and dropped onto the wooden floorboard below. Thud. Ding! It was a long way down to fall. The girl kept rolling from side to side, to the left, to the right. Momentum was building now. Left, right. To the left. For a moment, she was balancing on her side. Suddenly, she felt weightless. Then, even more suddenly, she was laying face down on the floor. Thud. Ow! She cried, before cursing herself for making a sound. The bandages had loosened a little now, and Stella found that she could move her legs and arms a tiny bit. This means they can't be broken, she realised. She shuffled along the floor and with all the speed and grace of a caterpillar. After a moment, the girl realised she had only moved a few inches. It was pitiful. She lay on the floor, utterly exhausted and dejected. At this rate, it would take a month to make it to her bedroom door, and a year to drag herself downstairs. Stella knew she wasn't going to get anywhere until she had wriggled out of these bandages. But how? She couldn't move her hands or feet. But then she had an idea. She was going to have to bite her way out. Stella tucked her chin down as far as she could possibly go. Next, she stuck out her tongue and tried to hook a piece of bandage with the tip, like trying to hook a rubber duck with a rod at the fair. It was much more difficult than it looked. After trying and trying and trying, finally she managed to catch the end of the bandage between her teeth. Yanking her neck back, she tugged at it. Shaking her head from side to side, she loosened it. When she had pulled a long enough strip of bandage loose, she held it tight in her mouth. It was like she was a dog who had found a very special stick and was not going to let go. Stella shuffled back towards the bed. Exhausted, but determined, she hooked the loose piece of bandage on one of the sharp metal springs under the mattress. Great idea. Next, she rolled herself over, and the more she rolled, the more the bandage unravelled. It was working. With each roll, she could feel her body moving that little bit more. Soon, she could waggle her arms a bit and then her legs. The human caterpillar was hatching into a beautiful butterfly. The excitement at slowly becoming free filled her entire body with an electric energy. Soon, she was rolling faster and faster and waggling her arms and legs frantically. As soon as her left arm was free, she grabbed the end of the bandage with her hand, and it was unravelling at great speed now. Next, her right arm came free. Now she could push the bandage down, and soon she kicked her legs free. For a moment, she lay on her back on the floor of the bedroom. The epic struggle was over. The bandage was curled up next to her like a snake that she had killed with her bare hands. Stella's bedroom was 2 floors up. In her nightdress, she crawled over to the window. Looking down to the snow-covered lawn, she realised she was too high to jump. A huge white figure loomed at the end of the long, sloping garden. It looked like a snowman, but it was nearly as tall as the house. A ladder leaned next to it. What was it? Stella was transfixed by it for a moment, but darkness was descending, and there was no time to lose. But there was a problem. The only way out of the bedroom was the door, and it was locked. There was one key on the other side of the door, and the next chapter is chapter 8, The Great Escape. And there was somebody at my window there. Best see who it was. Until then, bye!